Any movie fans, the first thing I want to talk about is Chris Hemsworth, who's played Thor, his comments about Thor Love and Thunder. I love what he said here. I think we had too much fun. It just became too silly. Hemsworth said about the movie, it's always hard being in the center of it and having any real perspective. I love the process. It's always why, but you just don't know how people are going to respond. Hemsworth said his biggest critics were his son's friends. It's a bunch of 8-year-olds critiquing my film. He thought this one had too much humor. The action was cool, but the VFX wasn't as good. He said, I cringed and laughed equally at it. That was funny to hear about his kids' friends. But I completely agree with him about this movie just being too silly. Like, I love the first Thor movie, and I love Thor Ragnarok. That's my favorite. And those two movies to me did a great job of balancing humor and drama. Like Thor Ragnarok is actually one of the darkest MCU movies, but it never feels like the comedy feels funny, and it never feels like it takes me out of the dramatic moments in it. They feel like perfectly timed. Same with the first Thor movie. Like the Human Thor Love and Thunder reminded me like Human Thor: The Dark World, where it just didn't work for me at all. And even movies like Endgame, where you see him cut off Thanos' head at the beginning, you still have Banner still there. And even when he's Shelby Thor, you have that moment he's talking to Hawks, Hawks saying, don't mention that name. You see in Chris Evans' great performance there of the tragic side of Thor, where he feels like he couldn't do anything. And again, he still feels serious and badass and dramatic. Even in the moment at the Endgame where he's saying, let's kill him proper this time, you see him go to like warrior mode. So it just, Thor Love and Thunder, though, it felt like, even the way he talks to the kids in those scenes in those movies, it never felt like I took anything serious in that movie. Because even in a movie like Thor: The Dark World, which I think is mediocre, and I don't like the humor in that movie. Even in that movie, I can still take Thor serious even in that movie. And like I said, I thought Taika Waititi did a great job with Thor Ragnarok. I thought like he did a great balance of okay, this guy has a sense of humor, but it's still had one of the darkest movies. And I never felt like the humor took me out, and it actually felt funny in Thor Ragnarok. In Thor Love and Thunder, I felt like they let Taika Waititi way too loose in that movie with the silliness. So it just like I agree with him. Like it just got way too goofy in that movie. And if they ever like, I would love to see him do another Thor movie because it sounds like he's probably gonna be done the character soon. But I'd love to have him get like a final great movie and not have that be like the last movie of his. And then you also talked about some other MCU movies. So that Wakanda Forever was really cool. He didn't see Quantumanium, but he saw enough of the market to wonder why Marvel turned the relatively small Ant-Man franchise into a huge space opera. That's the trick you have to separate. That's the trick. You have to separate all these stories. Hemsworth said, the moment it's like your world is in danger, the tiny universe. It's like, yeah, so it was the last 24 movies. It has to become a bit more personal and grounded. I love hearing that too because I love Wakanda Forever, and one of the reasons why I think Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania was just mediocre to me was that if you have every movie be about the end of the universe, end of the world, then it loses its personal stakes. Like the one reason why I loved the first Ant-Man movie, it was just about him saving his daughter, saving his family. It wasn't about him saving the world, saving the universe. They grounded it. I mean, I love the first Iron Man movie, and the reason I didn't really care for Iron Man 2 and 3, one of the reasons at least why I didn't think it was good as the first one is that it got kind of, goofier, and I think sometimes it's like, I mean, Iron Man 3 had more of a personal story than Iron Man 2 with the whole, like, suit thing, but I love what he said about this, where I think the reason why Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania just didn't turn out well, one of the reasons is because it just felt too big with a franchise that was more about smaller stakes. And I think with comic movies, you need to sometimes just ground them more and not have them be so, not have every movie be about saving the universe. Like MCU was always good at switching gears in the first two phases, so I think they need to get back to that. Honestly, and he also commented on the criticisms made by filmmakers such as Martin Scorsese and Quentin Tarantino, where Quentin Tarantino was saying, the characters are starting out with the actor, and I agree with that because the characters are all popular. But I also think that's kind of like it. I don't necessarily completely agree with that though, because I do think the stars are what make the characters too. Like I think Rob Downey Jr. is just popular as the character of Iron Man when it comes to like what made Iron Man big. And he just said that's super depressing when I hear that said about Tarantino and Scorsese. These two, there goes two of my heroes I won't work with. I guess they're not a fan of me. Seeing the glass half full, and I'm thankful that I have been part of something that kept people in cinemas. Now, whether or not these films were to the determine of other films, I don't know. I don't love when we start scrutinizing each other when there's so much faculty in the business and in the space loss as it is. I say that less of the directors who made these comments, who by all the way still my heroes, in a heartbeat I will leap to work with any of them, but I say it more to broader opinion around the topic. I don't think any of us have the answer, but which fine. Not only say that, because I know Martin Scorsese had a comment where he said that comic movies are like theme park rides. They aren't real cinema. They aren't real movies. Not, I had no problem with the theme park rides, even though I don't completely agree with that comment, because I feel like you're pinning down all comic book movies when you say something like that. But his idea of saying they're not real cinema, that's what annoyed me. And even Quentin Tarantino with his comments about, like, that 50-year-old people wouldn't enjoy these movies because he said, I enjoy these movies when I was maybe a kid, but and that's, I think these directors have. I can totally understand these directors. Some of these directors aren't being in the comic book movies, but I also agree with Chris Hemsworth's statement about we don't. I don't think directors need to scrutinize and each another about like attack a whole genre. I think there's room for all different types of movies, whether it be comic book movies, whether it be lower budget movies, whether it be mid tier budget movies, whether it be horror, western, drama, whatever type of movies. And when Martin Scorsese had that comment years ago saying they aren't real cinema, I'm just like, well, comic movies are doing the same thing that every other movie's doing. Which is you have a group of characters, and you have a story from beginning to middle to end. It's doing the same thing that every like to me a movie. When you say it's not real cinema, it's not a real movie. Well, the whole point of a movie is that it tells a story with characters. This is what comic movies do, the same as other movies. So I just think I love Hannah because I think sometimes these directors in Hollywood just sound like grumpy old people that feel the need to attack the most popular thing right now. It points out that is this, is it like did this affect other movies getting made and other movies not getting like the spotlight like comic book movies? And I would say this to that. Well, the studios just need to market these lower budget movies better because you have a whole year where you have other movies that come out besides comic book movies. So I would say the studios just market these lower budget mid tier movies better. Like when people like, I know some people feel like there's like too many comic book movies now, but I'm just like, you have a whole year of films that come out, not just comic book movies. And I don't think you need to attack a whole genre like James Cameron, Martin Scorsese, like Quentin Tarantino with his comments, what some of these directors have said lately about comic book movies. I don't think you need to attack a whole genre and come off like a dick because your movie's not getting the attention that comic book movies aren't getting. It's like that's a studio thing. The studio need to market the movies better outside of comic book movies. But I just love what he said. I thought it was all great. I think Chris Evans comes off like a good dude. He even said he would work with them again. And that's how I feel about directors. Like even though I don't like Martin Scorsese's comment, I don't agree with him. And with Quentin Tarantino's comment saying, that maybe older people wouldn't enjoy comic movies because he's not that older people wouldn't, but that him as a 50-year-old wouldn't enjoy them like he did as a kid. I don't agree with that when it comes to I think older people love comic movies too. Like, I don't agree with these. I don't agree with these comments from what James Cameron says all the time. But at the end of the day, I'm going to still watch a James Cameron movie. I'll still go see a James Cameron movie. I don't ever want to personally meet him. I don't ever want to personally meet Martin Scorsese. But they're still great directors, and I will still watch their movies. I just don't agree with their opinions. The next thing I want to talk about is that the director of the Flash movie is rumored to be the top choice for the Batman movie, Batman Brave and the Bold. With Batman, Damian Wayne's Robin, the new Batman movie coming out. That's probably the new DCU. I'll say this. If this rumor turns out to be true, if he turns out to be the director, I would be excited about the idea because he directed the It movies. Which I love the first It movie. The second one's kind of mediocre to me. I'm not the biggest fan of It Chapter 2. It was fine, but it was kind of like one of those movies I don't really feel the need to go back and watch again. The first one I love. I know he has a Flash movie coming out, so I think that's going to give me I think coming out of that movie would decide what I would be excited for, like completely excited for him as a choice to direct Batman. But I think it would be a great choice if just if he turns out to be the pick to direct that movie. But I definitely am kind of like, oh, I gotta wait to see how the Flash movie is. Next thing I want to talk about is that Spider-Verse 3 might not make its release date in 2024. Now, this would suck because the second movie was left on a cliffhanger. I know some people weren't fans of the cliffhanger ending of the second movie. And I can definitely understand why if you didn't know it was going to be part one, part two. And even with that, you have examples like Infinity War where it told a complete story and it's still, you still had like another story to tell, but it didn't really leave it on a cliffhanger where you were like it told a complete story. So I can see why some people would be pissed off at the end of the Spider-Verse too. But I know Haley Steinfeld said she hasn't recorded any Alliance for Spider-Verse 3, so I think it would suck if this gets delayed further because the cliffhanger at the end of this movie is so good. I'm like, ugh, I don't want to have to wait till 2025 to see the third movie. So I know these animation movies take longer too, take a long time to make. So and one side I'm like, well, I don't want them to bust it out. I want them to make the best movie they can because they've done a great job so far. But the way this movie ends is just it will suck to have to wait another year. The next thing I want to talk about is the Expendables trailer for the fourth Expendables movie. Now let me say this: I'm not the biggest fan of these movies. I think they're fun. I even enjoyed the third one, but they're not movies that I love or great ones I go back to rewatch again. And I mean the cast looks like an entertaining movie like the other ones. I mean, seeing Megan Foster is a little weird because I never thought of her as really an action star. But overall, I thought the trailer was fine. It looks like the other ones, like a fun action movie. I mean, I know they weren't able to get everybody back cast wise, but that's only bothering me because I'm not like a test these movies, honestly. So it was like one of those trailers where I'm like, oh, it's another Expendables movie. Didn't really do much for me, but hopefully it turns out to be fun like the other ones. I'm not like overly excited for this movie. It's kind of like not one of those ones I'm like anticipating to see. But overall, I thought the trailer was fine. Until next time, movie fans.